What is happening? Germany urgently asks the United States to return its World War II gold reserves. Is there a conspiracy with central bank gold leasing and the new monetary regime? What's happening? For decades, investors and fans of precious metals have been talking about a grand conspiracy. The theory is that governments and central banks have kept the price of gold and silver artificially low. The purpose of this manipulation would be to support fiat currencies issued by central banks by limiting the profits from investments in precious metals. After all, if gold and silver are high, it makes fiat currencies look comparatively poor in value. The best evidence of such a plan was arguably former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan's statement to Congress that central banks are prepared to lease gold in increasing quantities if the price rises. And now Germany wants to get back 1,200 tons of its gold from the US. It's worth about 113 billion euros. Leasing gold is what noted financial analyst Jim Rickards wrote about in his book, The New Case for Gold. A central bank could lease gold from one of the banks in the London Bullion Market Association, which includes major global powers such as Goldman Sachs, Citibank, JP Morgan Chase, and HSBC. Leasing monetary gold is often done through an unaccountable intermediary called the Bank for International Settlements, BIS. Historically, the BIS has been used as a primary conduit for manipulating the gold market and for conducting transactions between central banks and commercial banks. The BIS is the most opaque institution in the world, and the BIS is the ideal institution through which central banks manipulate gold financial markets, including gold, with complete opacity. Now, why would the central banks lease their gold? Officially, so that they can earn a small income, but some believe it also helps keep prices low. Ideas for a gold price suppression system revolve primarily around the leasing of monetary gold, as well as paper gold and paper silver, that which only appears in contracts. We sometimes refer to gold futures contracts traded on exchanges such as COMEX and LBMA. Paper metal can also refer to unallocated or pooled gold accounts where multiple people may believe they own the same price of possibly leased gold. And when you buy gold future contracts in total, there are hundreds of ounces of paper metal traded for every ounce of actual physical bullion in a vault. Most of the time, the physical metal never changes hands or is delivered. Paper gold and silver are simply traded on the market and then settled with cash. However, this has recently begun to change. German reserves since World War II. Germany has the second largest gold reserve in the world, on paper at least. The country's official reserve stands at 3,352 tons, behind only the United States, which has 8,133 tons. About 37% of Germany's gold, 1,236 tons, is held by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The gold was moved to the United States for safekeeping in the aftermath of World War II, when the threat of Soviet tanks in the Cold War was great. In 2013, German politicians first began repatriating quantities of the precious metal. By 2017, a decent portion of the country's gold reserves had been returned to Germany's central bank, mostly from France and England. Only about 300 tons of that came from New York Fed, which brings us to today, when more than a third of Germany's gold is still in the vaults of the New York Fed in Manhattan. Today, the German conservatives SDU are pushing once again to at least be able to register their reserves with the New York Fed, something they have not yet achieved. According to the statement of Michael Jaeger, head of the European Taxpayers Association, by the German Bild newspaper, the Bundesbank and the German government must show foresight in this phase of the global reserve of power relations and immediately recover German gold from the USA, especially at a time when Berlin and Brussels are discussing huge new debt, We need immediate access to all gold reserves in case of an emergency, they said. This excerpt is from the Bild article in the dramatic title, Bring Our Gold Back from the USA Immediately. It's no surprise that President Donald Trump's desire to inspect the gold reserves at Fort Knox has not inspired confidence in foreign governments that store their gold in the United States. I wonder what's happening with that. I thought they were going to go and inspect the gold. What happened? In another excerpt from statements by Michael Jager via Bild, he points out, if even Trump wants to inspect the U.S. gold at Fort Knox to be sure, then that should also be the minimum requirement of the new federal government for German gold in the U.S. German Minister's Department Markus Ferber added, I demand regular checks of Germany's gold reserves. Officials at the Bundesbank must personally register the bars and document the results. It's becoming clear that the old system of blind trust, quote unquote, is collapsing. Fears of theft of leased gold? It's suspected that the fears driving Germany's desire to repatriate its gold stem largely from the same story we've already mentioned, the gold leasing conspiracy. For decades, rumors have circulated that central banks are leasing gold reserves, including those of foreign governments. The gold could hypothetically be sold on the open market. In theory, this would help keep a cap on the price of physical gold while also supporting monetary gold. For now, the lease conspiracy is largely hypothetical. The world of gold reserves is incredibly opaque, which of course only adds to the intrigue of conspiracy theories. But it's undeniable that something has changed in the past decade. Governments are no longer so complacent when it comes to gold reserves held by foreign central banks. This is yet another sign that we are nearing the end of an era of fiat currency dominance. Gold has begun to make its inevitable return to the international monetary system. The debt event, tipping point, and monetary gold. It's no coincidence that this battle to acquire physical gold is taking place as the global debt spiral reached a tipping point, conservatively estimating it at over $100 trillion. Governments around the world, particularly here in the US, are approaching what some are calling the debt event horizon. This is a point where interest costs on debt become a substantial part of overall government spending and begin to spiral out of control, dramatically worsening the country's fiscal position. In 2024, the United States government spent about $1.1 trillion on interest payments alone on its debt. The total tax revenue for the year was about $4.9 trillion. So almost a quarter of tax revenue was spent on interest payments alone. The debt and deficit will grow at a rapid pace from now on. Even if Elon Musk's Department of Efficiency, DOGE, manages to reduce government spending, it will only delay the inevitable. That's why gold keeps hitting new all-time highs. It's also why governments around the world, including the US, apparently are trying to get their hands on physical gold. The global monetary system is sick, and the ultimate cure is a return to hard money, which means much higher inflation and much higher prices for precious metals. In other words, the rally for gold and silver is just beginning. And this is from Banking News. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.